In podcast episode number 54, I talked to Nicol Vandyk about injury prevention. Nicol Vandyk is a physiotherapist and clinical researcher currently occupying the role of injury surveillance and medical research officer with the Irish Rugby Football Union in Dublin, Ireland. In 2018, Nicol completed his PhD in health sciences at Ghent University in Belgium, titled Risk Factors for Hamstring Injuries in Professional Football Players. During this time, Nicol was a physiotherapist at the Aspetar Orthopedic and Sports Medicine Hospital. We started out by talking about the accuracy of screening tests. Nicol explained that for purposes of prediction, our injury screening tests are terrible as the occurrence of injuries is too complex and there are too many factors that influence whether an injury will occur or not. On top of that, there is too much overlap between the injured and uninjured group. According to Nicol, screening tests can and should be used in three ways. Either we don't screen and everybody gets the intervention. Second, we do screen and develop categories of risk. And a third option is to screen later on. So you've had an injury and testing can help us to understand how to mitigate risk for you. Nicol stressed that we should let go of the idea of prediction, but to see screening tests as periodic health examinations or monitoring instead of screening once or twice a year. It's useful to detect ongoing issues. It can give you an idea where athletes are with their previous issues, and it helps you to establish a relationship and trust with your athletes. Next, Nicol explained that he's trying to look for patterns in athletes, which also includes other information such as wellness, sleep scores, load, stress and anxiety, and so on. Based on this information, he's creating a risk profile for the athlete. We also talked a lot about the struggle of the human mind to understand risk and compared this to the weather. If the forecast says that there's an 80% chance of rain, our mind thinks that it's definitely going to rain tomorrow. That's one of the reasons why we struggle with the concept of injury prediction. Looking at the evidence, previous injury comes forward as the biggest risk factor for re-injury. Nicol explained that this is a huge chance for us as physios. In his research projects at Aspetar, injured athletes received state-of-the-art rehab, and in the follow-up studies with these athletes, re-injury as a risk factor disappeared. This means that we are able to mitigate or eliminate the risk of previous injuries if you're doing excellent rehab. According to Nicol, physios also have an exciting role to play in tertiary prevention, so making sure to increase robustness in athletes even after they have returned to play. We then went on to talk about alcohol and its possible influence on injury. While there are no studies on this topic, Nicol suggested that there might be an indirect influence by alcohol on sleep quality and recovery, which might lead to an increase in injury risk. He then went on to stress that sleep is a much underestimated factor and that injury risk increases with every hour of sleep deficit that we accumulate. For this reason, athletes should be educated about sleep hygiene. Our online course, Recovery for Sports Performance, with Jan Lemeur, covers this topic pretty extensively. You can check out the course by a click on the info button in the top right corner. Next, we went back to talk about musculoskeletal factors and their influence on injury risk. Nicol explained that we can see that generally strength, length, function and exposure emerge as important factors on a group level. However, similar to studies about interventions, for example, we need to apply this knowledge to the individual athlete to create a program that fits their situation, preferences level and goals. Just because something is important on a group level does not automatically mean that it's important for each and every individual. Our research helps us to understand what to pay attention to, and then we have to apply that for the individual in a clinical setting. This is where our clinical reason comes into play. Then we talked about Nicol's research on a Nordic hamstring curl, which showed a relative risk reduction of 50%. However, Nicol pointed out that there are loads of other great options that achieve eccentric overload in the hamstrings, and that we shouldn't get too hung up on a Nordics per se. Just make sure to implement some sort of eccentric overload training for the hamstrings in your team, and you will get a lot of bang for your buck. Despite efficacious exercise options, we still see an increase in hamstring injury rates. According to Nicol, this is due to the change in demands of the game of football, different playing times, and athletes being able to run faster and train harder. At last, we talked about the future of injury prevention. According to Nicol, we need more of a mixed method approach combining quantitative and qualitative data. A paper by Moons et al., for example, showed that the strongest predictor of return to play was how long the athlete thought it would take them to get back. Those factors should then be combined in a complex analysis by neural networks and machine learning approaches. Nicol's final advice for team physios is not to focus on injury prevention or prediction, but to create robust athletes and to focus on performance, including Nordic hamstring curls, Copenhagen sprints, mobility, stability, and health. This will enable players to better deal with whatever is thrown at them. And even if they do get injured, they will often get back quicker and have less re-injuries. All right, so this was a brief summary of podcast episode 54 with Nicol Vandyk. I hope I could raise your curiosity to listen to the whole episode and to learn more about injury prevention. If you would like to have more resources on this episode, head to our website physiotutors.com, where you can download the transcript and infographic. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.